Hey guys, Neil Orfield here to show you how I am going to be setting up my fantasy cruncher for tonight's showdown slate. This video is for DraftKings, and as usual, I'm going to start by adjusting the columns how I like them. I have set a default columns quick view for my showdown settings so that I can easily see the projections that I have on players, how much I'm using them, projected ownership, and all of the columns that I find important. And then from there, I just go straight into the advanced settings, and I'll show you how I'm going to set up my advanced settings. And I'm only using two tabs here, the general tab and then the groups tab. I'll start and show you what I'm going to do with the general tab. Unique players per lineup. I'm keeping this at 1 for this showdown slate. For any showdown slate, really, I'm typically keeping that at 1 unique player per lineup. Uh, in the team salary, I'm not going to set a minimum here. I will set a maximum as a way to get unique because a lot of players are going to feel the need to use up their full salary cap. They assume that lineups are better if you use the full salary cap. I don't know that that's necessarily true. And I do know that if I leave a little bit of salary on the table, I can come up with more unique lineups that not many players are going to be duplicating. I think tonight is actually a good night to leave a little bit more salary on the table than you usually would, just because it's a low scoring game. If some random player or a guy who doesn't, normally get a ton of opportunities scores a touchdown, I think tonight's a night where they could be optimal. Even if they're like $3,000 or $4,000, I think a player who scores a touchdown could be optimal just by getting that one touchdown, even if they don't have many other catches, just because it's expected to be a really low scoring game. It could get ugly out there. So I think tonight you have an opportunity here to really leave some salary on the table. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm just going to leave 1,500 on the table. I think you could leave more than that tonight and still make some pretty good lineups. In the offensive players versus defense, I always change this to 5. Again, not a lot of people are going to do it. Have 5 Pittsburgh Steelers against the Browns defense. Doesn't seem to make sense, but you'll see it work out more often than you would expect. And those lineups are going to be not duplicated a whole lot. So I like to set that to a max of 5 players. My global exposure cap, so this is how much I can have of each player. I'm going to keep this at 100. So I could theoretically have 100% of some players in my lineups. If I get to 100% on this slate, I'm probably going to go and adjust those individual players. But for now, I'm going to at least allow 100% of players in my lineups. Randomness, totally up to you how much control you want over your lineups. I use a good bit of randomness. I set it at 50%. Minimum projection included in calculation. Once again, this is the any player who has below 3 currently in their projection is not going to make it into your lineup set. So any player who has a low projection is just naturally not going to make it into your lineup set. So if you want those players in your lineups, you either have to give them a boost in projection or you need to lower this field. I might go ahead and do both, but for now, I'm just going to change this from 3 to 2. So now any player between 2 and 3 projected fantasy points will also be in my lineup set. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't really use this setting. I think 8% is a good number if you do, though. So I'll leave that there. And yes, I allow up to 5 players from each team. Sometimes those on-slot lineups with 5 players from one team and 1 from the other go a little bit under-owned. So I think it's good to leave that as having the possibility of getting 5 players from one team and just 1 from the other. So that's everything that I'm going to do here from this general tab. And then I'll go straight to the groups tab. Guys, let me take a break here to tell you that you can get access to all of our Stokastic Plus NFL tools for showdown and single game slates for only $1. Click the link in the description of this video below or use promo code PRIMETIME. That's PRIMETIME, all caps, at checkout to get 1 week of our NFL Primetime package for only $1. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools for NFL DFS that we have to offer for showdown and single game slates, including player projections, ownership projections, top plays, lineup builder, and our expert Discord. This offer is only valid through September 29th. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included with this promo. I'm going to create a new group. And as usual, the first group that I create is just going to be saying, if I have a quarterback in the captain spot, we need to have at least 1 pass catcher. Sometimes I set it to 2 pass catchers. Occasionally, if there's a guy like Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson or maybe Josh Allen, players who get a lot of production on the ground, sometimes I'll set it where I don't require a pass catcher, but I give boost to the pass catchers. But for here, I'm going to require at least 1 pass catcher for each of these quarterbacks because they're not rushing quarterbacks. I'm going to call this Trubisky captain. And as you can see, I selected Mitch Trubisky in the captain spot as my key player. In this group, this is going to be my only key player. It's going to be Mitch Trubisky in the captain spot. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add every Steelers receiver or pass catcher to this group. Anybody with a projection going right in. Miles Boykin, Gunner, Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pickens, Zach Gentry, Moose. And here's where you can decide, do you want to include running backs? I will in this group, particularly because Najee Harris does do a fair amount of receiving, so you'll want to have him in this group. Okay, and then you don't need to include these captains because Trubisky is the captain, so you can't have two captains in the lineup. No need to worry about those. And now I'm going to say, if any key player are used, then use at least one player from this group. So anytime Mitch Trubisky in the captain spot is used in the lineup, at least one of these players will be used in the lineup. You could set this to 2. I think that would be a reasonable decision on this slate. Trubisky is not a particularly great rusher. I think I'm going to leave it at 1 just because, if Trubisky does score a touchdown on the ground, he's probably not going to be bringing more than, he could bring more than one other pass catcher with him, but not necessarily, because this is a low scoring projected game. It could get ugly out there. So I think I'm just going to leave it at 1. And then I'm going to also give boost to these pass catchers. So it does make it more likely that I'm going to get to more than 1 in my lineup. I'm just not requiring it here. And as usual, you can see the players who are have lower projections and have lower price tags. I'm giving boost a little bit more than the guys like Deontay Johnson, who is already going to get into a lot of these lineups. He has a pretty high projection. He's also a high enough salary that I have concerns that if Johnson does too well, he's going to outscore Trubisky, because for every passing play, the receiver does outscore the quarterback. And if Trubisky is going too much to one receiver, it's likely that receiver is going to outscore him. So I'm giving bigger boost to the guys who could make it into the optimal with less production. And with the running backs included, I'm tempted to say 2 players in this group. I still think I'm going to leave it at 1, but it is tempting to say 2 players, because it is most likely that if Mitch Trubisky is the optimal captain, he has at least 2 pass catchers along for the ride in flex spots. But I think I'm just going to leave it at 1. And then I'm going to do the same thing for Jacoby Brissett. Brissett in the captain spot as my key player. And then I'll just add every Browns pass catcher. And I'm including the running backs. Okay. And now same thing, I'm going to give all these players little boosts kind of based on, their current projection and their salary and what it would take to get them in the optimal and the odds that they're going to outscore Brissett if they are in the optimal. So just a little bit of a boost for Amari Cooper. I do want to make it, I think, more likely that Amari Cooper makes it into my lineup when Brissett is captain than Deontay Johnson. And we saw, I think Deontay Johnson's projection is somewhere in the 13 to 14 range. Cooper's at just 11. So I think I will give a little bit of a bigger boost for Cooper here. I lowered Cooper just a little bit because I do still have the same concerns about Cooper doing too well and outscoring Brissett. But in general, a lot of mid-range options on the Browns. We don't really know who's going to do well. I'm probably not going to give a boost to Chubb or Felton. I will give a little bit of a boost to Kareem Hunt as the better receiving back. And again, I think I'm just going to leave this at one player. You could consider leaving it at two. Brissett is not historically a great rusher. He does have 10 rushes for, I believe, 53 yards through 2 games this year. So better than usual so far this year, but I'm not sure if that's a big part of their game plan. So I'm going to require at least one and hopefully get 2 pass catchers from the Browns in most of my lineups with Brissett in the captain spot. And then from here, probably do the same thing with these guys in the flex spot. I think because they're not great rushers, most likely if Trubisky or Brissett is in the lineup, even in a flex spot, you're going to want one of their receivers with them. I don't think this is necessarily a group that you need to make here because there is, if one of them scores a rushing touchdown, that might be all it takes for them to be optimal in a flex spot. But I think that I'm still going to make the group here. So I'm going to say Trubisky in the flex spot. So this is a quarterback, but this is just flex on a showdown slate as my key player. And then once again, I'm going to add, actually, let me see if there's a, nope. Okay. I thought maybe there'd be a duplicate there, but I don't see it. So I'm just going to go through once again and add every player from the Steelers pass catchers to this group. And in this group, because I have Trubisky in one of the flex spots, he's not in the captain spot. So I'm going to also add all of my Steelers pass catchers in the captain spot to this group, or at least the better ones. And I am kind of adding all of them here. Okay. And then same thing, do I want to say only apply plus minus adjustments? I think that's something you could consider doing here. If you do that, then you do leave open the possibility to have some lineups where Mitchell Trubisky is in the flex spot and doesn't have any receiving option with him. So it's just a matter of how likely do you think it is that Trubisky is going to score points without, bringing these guys along with him? He could score, a rushing touchdown. He could throw it to a non-eligible player who's not in the DraftKings player pool. These are ways that Mitchell Trubisky can score fantasy points without bringing players along with him from the pool. Most likely, though, if Mitchell Trubisky is making it to the optimal lineup, he's probably bringing one of these receiving options along with him. I go back and forth. I think I'm actually just going to say only apply plus minus adjustments. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. That again, though, these are the things you need to be considering. You could do. I'm going to require at least one of these players to be with him. Might come back to bite me, but most likely it's not going to. And I don't think I'm even going to give any boost because I'm requiring one of these players to come along with him. I don't think it's necessary. You could go along and say, if Trubisky's in the flex spot, I want one of these captain options to get a boost. So you could say, give a little boost to Deontay Johnson, Firemouth, the better receiving options. You could say, I want to give a little boost to these guys if Trubisky is in as a flex, make it more likely that they are the in the lineup in the captain spot. All right, so that's what I'll do here. And then the same thing, I think you need to make the same kind of group for Jacoby Brissett. In the flex spot, has a key player. And then once again, because he's not in the captain spot in this group, I'm going to add all these Browns in the captain spot. Okay, good enough. And again, same consideration. Do I want to require one of these players, or do I just want to give them boosts? I think I'm going to require at least one of these players if Jacoby Brissett is in there as a flex option, and then maybe I'll do the same thing where I give a little boost to some of the better receiving options as captains, make it more likely that they are the captain in lineups with Brissett in the flex. You could debate whether I'm actually including good options here with Anthony Schwartz and David Bell, but for the purpose of this group, I think I'll include them. And then other groups you can consider making. For example, you could make a group of all of the Browns receivers as captains, and then make a group as key players. So you could say, as captains, as key players, you can make a group of all of the Browns receivers, and then make the secondary group that same group of receivers in the flex spot, and say something like, include at most one from the secondary group, which would say, if you're using a Browns receiver in the captain spot, then you only have at most one more Browns receiver in the flex spot. That's the kind of group you could consider making, because most likely if a Browns receiver makes it into the captain spot, it's because they're getting a lot of the volume for the Browns, and it's unlikely that they're bringing along that two other Browns receivers make it into the optimal lineup without Jacoby Brissett becoming the optimal captain. So you could make a group like that. I don't think I'm going to. I typically don't do a ton of groups. I think that this is probably as many groups as you need to make on a slate like this. So I'm not going to do it, but you can find other correlations that you want to make groups for. And, I'm going to first see what my lineups look like and then decide if I want to make any more groups. But really, most nights, I'm only making 3 or 4 groups. And then one thing that I like to do is, so I set global exposure cap at 100%. Oftentimes I'll go into this captain spot here and I will put it at a lower number. On a night like tonight, I've already got this set at 20%. I must have already, let me see here, I've got 100%. Okay, so I just changed it back, but I go in here and set it at some lower number so that I don't get 100% of any one captain. Oftentimes I'll set it at 20%, but sometimes I'll actually go back and set it even lower if I really want to spread out my captain ownership. I think tonight's a night where you could consider setting it at like 10% if you're doing 150 lineups. It's really personal preference here, but I think that it is a low enough scoring game, and there's enough options that could be the optimal captain that you could consider setting this even lower. But for now, I'm just going to set it at 20%. I'm going to change this to use my projections, and I'm going to crunch 150 lineups. All right, so far I kind of like the way these lineups look. Trubisky in the captain spot with 3 pass catching options from the Steelers. Claypool in captain has Trubisky in the flex spot. Deontay Johnson, the captain, with just Mitch Trubisky in the flex spot. Again, I did not make the group saying don't include more than one other Steelers option in the flex spot if you have Deontay Johnson in the captain spot. But this is the kind of lineup that you get, and honestly, I think it looks pretty good. So I like these options so far. Brissett with 2 pass catching options. I think I only required 1, but I gave a little boost to the guys who receive a little bit more. So in general, I think these lineups are looking pretty good. I'm happy with the way they look. I look at my exposure over here. Do I want 59% of the Browns defense? Probably not. That's probably something that I will adjust. And I'll show you what I kind of do. I've showed you this in the past if you've watched past videos, but typically I go through and I look at each tab up here individually to kind of figure out, am I getting the exposure that I like to each player at each position in the captain spot? So I'm looking at my used column here, 20% Mr. Trubisky. I'm getting just 6.7% Browns in the captain spot, which kind of surprised me. 2% Steelers in the captain spot, 16.7% Brissett. I don't know. I'll adjust as I go. Sometimes in the captain spot, I've started to give thumbs up or thumbs down just for the captain spot. If there's players that I don't want to give them a huge boost to their projection, but I do want a little bit more of them at captain, sometimes I will manage that for the captain spot by giving thumbs up or thumbs down. All right, my quarterbacks. I'm getting to 73% Trubisky and only 46% Jacoby Brissett. That's probably something that I would want to change, and I just incrementally, change my projection, get a little bit more, a little bit less of different players. Running backs. Oh, and I like to sort by salary typically. Yeah, seems like a good amount of Nick Chubb coming in under the field, but I'd be comfortable with that number. Same thing with Najee Harris. Kareem Hunt looks good. Jaylen Warren is a guy who, I might be targeting a little bit just as a low-owned option at 3,200. He's had some opportunities through 2 weeks, so maybe I'd give him a little bit of a projections boost. These 3 players currently not even in my player pool because they have projections lower than 2. I'll start off by just giving them boost up to 2. And I can tell you right now, I'm not going to be getting any Benny Snell if I keep him at 2. So if I want to get some Benny Snell, I'd have to probably give that 3. Most likely the same for these guys. But, I do this kind of incrementally. See what comes out first and then adjust as I go. Currently getting virtually no Amari Cooper. I don't love that. He's not going to project well, but I think that he's a talented player. And, he's the wide receiver 1. I'd rather get more than 6% Amari Cooper. I'm not going to risk that. Peoples-Jones, I think, is another guy that I'm going to kind of target tonight. He's not getting a ton of ownership. I mean, 21% is not nothing, but he seems to be the pretty clear number 2 receiver right now for Cleveland, so I'd probably give him a little bit of a boost. And then George Pickens, another guy, just because of only 14.4% ownership. Trubisky said this week that he'd like to get Pickens the ball a little bit more. But I'm not really showing you exactly the boost that I would give or, the exposure that I'm trying to get to. I'm just kind of giving you a general idea of my thought process as I go here. Harrison Bryant, not going to project well point per dollar at 4,600. He doesn't have that kind of opportunity, but he's the kind of guy. He scores a touchdown. I think he could be optimal on this slate. David Njoku, a little bit of boost there. The Muth, give him a little boost. Zach Gentry, another guy who could score a touchdown, and it might be good enough to be optimal. Not getting a lot of Boswell, give him a little boost. And then, yeah, the Browns defense, I'm not going to have to boost them here. I boosted the other players, so if I keep getting this kind of number, I'd probably actually lower their projection a little bit. Typically, I prefer to just go in one direction, but I might lower them if I keep getting too much. But I boosted all the other players, so they are lower relative to a lot of other players on the slate now. So crunch again, see what comes out. And then I do the same thing. I look at everybody. Am I happy with the exposures I'm getting? Do I need to be giving boosts, lowering some projections? I just do it, one crunch at a time, adjust things as I go. And I think that'll do it. I'm not going to go through. Sometimes I crunch 30 times. I'm not gonna go through and crunch 30 times. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I am looking at as I am making my lineups for Showdown. Thanks for watching and good luck tonight.